behaviour modification. Jamie, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Stephen. Nice to speak to you. Hello, David. Hello.
Can e-collars ever be used safely with dogs?
Okay, Stephen, if I can very as succinctly as possible, just basically give you where I'm coming from. I'm not the opposite side of the fence to what David's saying. I'm not somebody who's saying I despise e-collars. I'm not somebody who's saying I love e-collars. The only way that I train a dog is with an e-collar. I see benefit. I see a great deal of benefit in the use of remote training aids in certain training and behaviour modification requirements. It's been proven to see benefit, and I see it personally. I've experienced it hundreds and hundreds of times over. It's not an either or. It's a whole. The whole of training and behaviour modification, it has to be holistic. You have to look at what it is that you're trying to achieve, what you'd rather have instead, what you have, and the best way about going about effectively, efficiently, and for the welfare of the animal and the context of situation that you have, that you're dealt with, of being able to achieve that aim in the best way possible.
I'm not a dog trainer, but I am a dog owner and a dog lover. How can you do that to an animal?
What you're saying, Stephen, the way that you're projecting it is as though I'm doing something negative, as though I'm willfully projecting something which I am knowingly causing harm to an animal for no other reason than for my, if you like, personal benefit, my personal enjoyment. But when you actually understand what a remote collar is, let me just say that I came from probably a more extreme side of the fence than David is at present. I was a member of certain organisations, and I was very, very anti the idea and the use of remote training collars. Now, that came down not to what the remote training collars were, although they were different at the time. Technology has advanced hugely, but it came down to my lack of knowledge, understanding, experience, and if you like, my own naivety, and my prejudice that I held. I also thought, how could you do that to a dog? And David's talking about doing a video where he's worn a remote collar. I did a video where I wore a remote collar probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and again posted that on social media, and it attracted a lot of attention. And I concur that as the remote collar moves up in levels to higher levels, then the sensation that is felt goes from basically something that's imperceptible as far as the human's concerned, to something that gradually grows and increases in intensity. The thing that is very, very important, there's a couple of points that, if you'll allow me, that are very, very important to add. The first thing is, as I said to your researcher when they phoned, a remote collar is innocuous. A remote collar, leave it on the floor, it's inanimate. It won't do a thing. It cannot harm anyone or anything. It cannot cause discomfort. The only thing that can do that is the intention and the application by the person who picks the remote collar up. Now, if I pick a remote collar up intending to cause harm or discomfort to an animal for no other reason than my own pleasure, then the remote collar facilitates that aim. It allows me to do it. However, if I educate myself, and the reason that I'm using that remote collar and the way in which I'm using that remote collar is in order to better the welfare, the long-term welfare prospects of that animal, their homing, their training, the situation that they find themselves in, then that's a whole different kettle of fish.
But at the same time, you're pushing a button to pass an electric current through the neck, the collar of a dog, because you want it to do something that you want it to do.
Well, hang on a second, because the second that you put a flat lead and a collar on a dog, a flat collar and a lead on a dog, you're applying a pressure to the neck of that dog because you want it to do something that you want it to do. I want a dog to stay close to me, so I'll put a collar and lead on it. The tool, the only thing that differs is the tool. The actual principle, the emotive or the ethical principle that you're talking about is exactly the same. I'm still applying the pressure to achieve an aim that I desire. The dog isn't asking to wear a flat collar and a lead. I'm putting it on.
David Piplado from Perthshire Gun Dog Rescue. Yeah. Can you see, listening to Jamie there, the benefit that he's talking about?
Through my own personal experience, and that's all I'm ever talking through is my own personal experience, hence why I actually put it on my own self. I've rehabilitated many dogs, whether it be rescue dogs as a gun dog breed, or for the working breeds such as Shepherds and Rottweilers, and I've never had to use one. Whether that says that they should be banned, that's open to other people to say. But I deal with livestock chasers. I've dealt with dogs that have killed sheep. I'm more of a time person, but going back to the collar, and even I'd rather have someone put a lead around me and pull me around with a lead than what I experienced with a collar. I mean, it has to be. It's a far less pain. The way I train, I ask rather than tell. But if we even compare it to an electric fence,
You can't compare it to an electric fence, David. It's a completely different power source.
You can. What I'm saying is about an electric fence. If you witness a dog that runs into an electric fence, yeah, it'll yelp, it'll run back, it'll look at that electric fence differently. It has a choice.
Okay. So you're talking about averted conditioning, yeah?
Hold on. The reason I did a second video was, which was against everyone's sort of like will or want anything, was to show the desire kind of thing. I did my second video purely to show that dogs will do the same, where if they've got a desire to do something that we don't want them to do, they will still do it. So if you put a dog out towards an electric fence and it runs into an electric fence and it sees something on the other side of that electric fence, it will look back, it will stand back and assess whether what's over on the other side of the electric fence is what it wants. Now, if the electric current is too much for it, it will come away from that. But it hasn't got that choice on the collar. That's the thing. We're inflicting that shock on them and they can't get away from it. Now, if they don't like that, hold on, because I'll let you get back to it.
Okay, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, if they don't like that effect from the electric fence, they can walk away from it, just like cattle do. Yeah, they'll look at it, assess it, and they won't go from it.
Okay, that's the point, Jamie, isn't it? The dog can't walk away from this. They can't. They don't have the opportunity to avoid this.
I'm not 100% sure which way you're coming from here, because the fact is, if you're using appropriately, professionally, and with welfare in mind, if you're using the stimulus from a remote training collar in the way that it should be using, it is absolutely about giving choice. That's why you're doing it. You're doing it to facilitate choice, to give the dog the power of choice. You don't correct a dog for everything that the dog does just because you can, taking away any choice option that the dog has. And the other thing, if I can just say this, comparisons to an electric fence, or if you look at the Phillips independent studies that were done, go to the ECMA website and it's printed on there, and you will see where the actual power, independently tested, where the actual power of a remote collar sits in relation to other forms of static or thoracic stimulation. You'll be able to see from an independent body. But to say, I felt this, as I say, I have a video of my daughter wearing a remote training collar going up in levels, and I'm asking her how it feels. It tickles, it scratches, it comes. You're talking about the lower levels. Now, you can't take, just as I can't take one brand of car and another brand of car and say by virtue of the fact that they're all mechanically propelled vehicles, they're exactly the same. They're not. They are different depending on the amount of work that's been put into it and what that tool is designed to achieve. And to come on to where Scotland is at the moment heading with regards to a ban on the wholesale supply, if you like, of any old remote training collar, I support that. I absolutely support that. There are things on the market, probably that David has used, where if you're talking about anything that steps in levels, then you're talking about a collar that, by me, is substandard, because it needs to be able to float, to be able to perfectly match the temperament of that dog, so that you are not over-correcting or over-stimulating, unless you're talking about a life and death situation whereby that is absolutely required.
Right. We've got a statement here from Scottish Government, actually, who says, we've confirmed our intention to introduce strict new regulations on the use of electronic training aids, allowing their use only under the guidance of approved trainers or veterinary surgeons. Details will be determined through discussion with stakeholders, including animal welfare organisations, and secondary legislation will be prepared for introduction in late 2017. Dog trainer Jamie Penrith and Perthshire Gun Dog Rescue David Pitblado, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.